Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name's Rich Bruckner. I'm an alcoholic. And I was separated from alcohol on August 30 of 04. I didn't quit drinking. I didn't put the plug in the jug. My best thinking didn't bring me to you. None of that crap I sometimes hear in meetings is true in my case. It would be arrogant. I mean, it would just be a lie. It would also make me non-alcoholic by definition, most importantly, because my book tells me that I'm a guy that's lost power, choice, and control, which means I didn't make any decisions. My best thinking didn't bring me, none of that. And to imply that I put the plug in the jug and just brought myself to AA, that would make me non-alcoholic, and I'd be home instead of here. I will tell you that at home we were looking. Jordan is my guest this weekend because my awesome wife is, she's 30 years old. We have a 9-month-old baby girl named Isabella, and Isabella is not airplane friendly at the moment. And she loves you folks at San Diego. AA is so special in my heart. This is just a lot of people that I love dearly are out here and have helped me along this path and traveled with me and encouraged me along. It's also kind of returning to the scene of the crime a little bit. You'll hear that. Anyways, in Maryland, we have these goofy rules about riding on school buses. I don't know if they do it out here or not. The older kids sit in the back of the bus, the younger kids in the front. There's like a social hierarchy on school buses. I don't know if they do this here, but my parents took me out of public school in 3rd grade to send me to a private school so that I could have a better opportunity at education in life than they ever did. I didn't see it that way. I hated them for the next 20 years for that. The way I saw it, they ripped me away from my friends to send me on a 45-minute bus ride to go to school with these rich kids. And it was the first time in 3rd grade I found out we were poor because 3rd graders are good like that. They just tell you. I mean, they don't hold anything back. And I found, we lived on a horse farm. I had chores in the morning. I had to feed the horses, muck the stalls. They called me redneck farm boy. I started to notice things that I was different than my peers. That's how I started to feel, again, because they told me so. There was a kid on that school bus. I've never checked with the school to find out if it's true. My perception's a little screwed up. That's why I'm hanging out with you all. And his name was Reed. Reed's job was just to beat me up every day for something. And they sign you guys Reeds out here. And it just seemed like he'd figure out something each day. And up to this point, I have to tell you this important. I come from a wonderful family, a great mother and father, morals, integrity, so much love in that house. It's unbelievable. One little sister, she's 3 years younger, an aunt, uncle, grandparents. Nobody in my family drinks. Any genetic theories of alcoholism, right on, I'm with you. Our book says that we as a fellowship don't have a position on that. If you're new, I hope you don't waste too much time trying to figure out, how or why you're alcoholic. We've got everything you need to take care of it. While I was pondering such deep things, my sponsor said he thinks I'm alcoholic because I drank too much, and I've just gone with that. And it's worked well. But these guys said, some of the older kids, they said, do you want to skip last period and do some drinking? I'd never skipped any class. I'd never done any drinking. And out of my mouth came, you bet, like I'd been doing it all along. They said, what do you drink? And I said, bourbon. And I don't know where that came from. And I wish that's what they had, because I didn't know that I'd be standing here having to report back to you folks someday, because what I'm about to tell you next is just, it's weenie. I mean, what those guys had, they had peach schnapps, And what makes me one of you, I now know, is not what I drank, how often I drank it, what it did to me. It's what it does for me that makes me one of you. Because you put enough alcohol in a non-alcoholic, they'll get sick. It's a poison. The body will get rid of it. That's just what happens. That is the physical body's reaction to enough alcohol. You put enough alcohol in a non-alcoholic, put them behind the wheel of a car enough times, they'll get a DUI or 2 or 3. That's what happens when you drink a lot and drive a car a lot. Doesn't necessarily make you alcoholic. You put enough alcohol in a non-alcoholic for a long enough period of time and stop abruptly, they'll shake and sweat and go through the early parts of the DTs. Doesn't make you alcoholic. That's the effect of alcohol on the human body. But boy, what it does for me, I'm willing to let it do all of that to me and more in exchange for what it does for me. And that's what those other 9 out of 10 people just can't wrap their mind around. But every single one of you go, oh yeah. And I'm one of you. I get to be here tonight because of what alcohol does for me, not what it does to me, not how often I drank, what I like to drink, or any of those stories that we're so infatuated with telling, right? And what these guys did, they passed this peach schnapps around, and as it's coming around, I'm drinking it with these guys. And really all I noticed was that those guys were about as lucky to be hanging out with me as I was with them. And I'd never felt like that my whole life, just kind of shoulder to shoulder, one of the guys. I went into the boys' room kind of feeling like a man for the first time. I noticed that. And there was a girl that rode that school bus. Her name was Nikki, and Nikki looked like a lot of you women here tonight. I mean, Nikki was good looking. And I didn't know how to talk to Nikki. I didn't know how to ask Nikki out. I had nothing going. But on this day, I'm in that boys' room feeling like a man with this peach schnapps in me, and somehow I intuitively knew how to handle this Nikki situation that used to baffle me. And I come out of there, and I get on the school bus, and I'm walking to the back of the bus, and I'm going to sit next to Nikki. And Reed gets up out of his seat, because I'm not supposed to be in the back of that school bus. And I know that. He gets up out of his seat, and as soon as he starts to get to his feet, I give it to him with everything my little body's got, and Reed goes down and out. And he is out cold. And the whole school bus gets really, really quiet. And I sit down next to Nikki, and I'm looking at Nikki. Nikki's looking at me, and I'm looking at Nikki. And I have this feeling and that silence come over me that some of you guys will remember. It's like long overdue respect. I mean, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And I finally got to tell Reed how I felt, with my fist. I think you guys call it a resentment. I didn't know that. I'm a kid, and it felt good to get rid of it. And we got to Nikki's bus stop, and when we got to her bus stop, she leaned over and she gave me this little kiss that maybe you guys will remember. I mean, it was half on my lips and half on my cheek, and it was different than when my mother and my aunts kissed me. I felt it in my toes, man. It was wonderful. And she got off, and we got to my house, my little bus stop, and I go in my house to those wonderful parents, and I was obviously drunk. They left me in the bathroom to be sick all night long to teach me a lesson. I don't know if anybody got, right? And that's one of the things that differentiates me from the hard drinker, right, the heavy drinker. Some things along the way might have captured their attention, not me. These things teaching me lessons go right past the guy. They leave me on the floor. I'm sick as a dog. My neck's kinked up, sleeping next to the toilet, how we do that with our face pressed against the porcelain. And I woke and I was grounded forever, and that's a big deal when you're like 13. It's like life without parole when we get older. You don't know when it's going to end. And the next thing, I'm thinking, my gosh, you're sick as a dog. I don't ever remember feeling like this, and I'm grounded forever. Are you ever going to do any more of that drinking? You bet. You bet. I mean, grounded forever and sick as a dog. What a small price to pay for what I had going on with Nikki and on that school bus. I mean, and what I didn't know was that something inside me was inwardly rearranged. And I can't say it better than Bill, man. Something inside me was set in flight much like a boomerang, my relationship with alcohol, that it was going to give me so much for so long, but one day turn slowly in flight and come back and nearly shred me to ribbons. And it was going to take from me every bit of morality, every bit of integrity. And when I say take, I mean give. I was going to give it to alcohol, but I was going to do it so slowly, one drink at a time, that I didn't even know what I was giving away. Our book says that often the alcoholic, me, I'm the last person to figure out what's going on. Everybody around me can see. By the time I clue in, it says that I have slipped past the point of human aid. Right? Just when I'm cluing in, it's over. And that was the case for me, and I drink as often as I can. And what that looks like is, weekend drinking, kegs of beer. It was back when coaches would buy the team a keg if you threw your keys in a basket and promised not to drive. And then you snatch the keys back later. I was a recreational drinker and driver in high school. I thought it was another sport. And And that's embarrassing to say, you know, and I've said such stupid things in bars throughout my life. I would sit on a bar stool and say things like, I'm a good drunk driver. And I'm willing to bet some other people have had this conversation in a bar. Right? And I talk about how to drive home drunk. You know, here's what I do. You put the windows down, you know, 3/4 of the way so the cop can kind of get his head in, but not really. You got a cigarette. You want the wind going, the radio not too loud. You got the air conditioned too with the wind down. And I do one eye because the one eye with the center of the line. And I go through this whole stupid theory, right? And the other people in the bar, you all are listening, going, yeah, right? And I say, and it makes sense to us, right? And I'm here to tell you, if you're new and you have a drunk driving system, welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know that normal people have systems, you know, for drunk driving. We can have whole conversations about them. I drive a CJ7 at that point, a little Jeep with no doors, no roof. One night I got a keg of beer in the back, 4 or 5 of my friends. We go around a turn too sharp and that Jeep rolls over 3 or 4 times. We all get sprayed out in a cornfield, some broken bones, some cuts, but nobody's seriously injured. Think that gets my attention? You know what I think? Did you see that? That was some good drunk driving right there. I mean, that was like NASCAR stuff. I rolled that thing, I walked away. I mean, that was like NASCAR. I mean, did you see that? That was good drunk driving. You know, it doesn't even clue into me that I almost killed 3, 4 people. And it progresses like that. And I drink as often as I can. I'm starting to spend weekends in jail because my parents are leaving me in jail for the weekend to teach me a lesson. Again, all that is for somebody like me, that's a better story on Monday morning about what I did that weekend and where I was. And it's somehow, you know, in my little nice private school, I think that gives me like street cred, you know, which is important in private prep school, apparently, in my mind. I eventually... God gave me a couple of gifts or talents. I remember about everything I read. I could tell you what page it's on and what paragraph, and I can remember it forever. I'm not a good studier. I don't have any skills. I'm not naturally intelligent, and I haven't worked for that. That's just the way it is. And that makes it look like you're good in school, even though you acquire none of the traits of studying, hard work, and the things that are supposed to go along with that. But you test real well when that happens. My sponsor, if he were here, he would say something silly, like I've been educated far beyond my natural intelligence or something, you know. And, you know, and I was a pretty good athlete, you know, and that landed me with a soccer scholarship right up here on the hill, as a matter of fact, to USD. And that's why it's nice to return to the scene of the crime. My college search for me looked like this. I grew up surfing since I don't remember learning. I was so young when my dad taught me to surf, and you know, live on the beach right now, smack on the sand in Ocean City, and surf most days of my life to this day. So I wanted to go somewhere that I could surf, and I liked the fact that it was 3,000 miles from home, and those nice parents, and those rules, and those values. Now, I'd overlooked a couple things, that this place is a Jesuit school. I don't know what Jesuits are. I could care less. And I come here, and they got some things going, and I get assigned a lady who's called an academic advisor. That might sound pretty neutral to some of you, but not to an alcoholic of my variety. This lady, all she's trying to do is to help me pick classes that I might graduate in 4 years. I don't see it like that. Anybody in my life that's ever tried to help me along the way, I think you're trying to hurt me. You're trying to tell me what to do. You're trying to tell me how to live my life. Back off. This is my life. Let me live it. And I don't know what that's all about, but when I've looked back through our inventory process, there have been a whole lot of well-meaning people placed in my life that were just trying to give me a friendly nudge in the right direction along the road of life. And I never see it like that. Anybody in my life that tries to help me, I think you're trying to hurt me. You're trying to hold me down and tell me what to do and back it off. She also says, we've got this idea. You need to get some things on your resume if you hope to ever go anywhere. You know, by the way, there's not much of like a professional soccer career, and you're not that good. You know, you need to get some other things on the resume that make it look like, you know, you're well-rounded. She might have even used the word altruistic, in which case I would have said, what's that mean? And what I would have heard was that it means you look like you care about other people. You need to get some things that make it look like you care about other people. And most of us alcoholics know about looking good on paper, right? What do you want me to do? I'll do it. I like looking good. I don't like doing good or being good, but I like looking good. So what do you have in mind? And she said, we've had this idea here for several years at the university. We want to start an Office of Alcohol and Drug Education. We want to get one of the students certified as an alcohol and drug counselor. And what this is going to be is peer counseling, you know, one student to another. And we'd like that to be you, Rich. We'd like to have you. So you're going to be the founding father of the Office of Alcohol and Drug Education. And I'm like, I'm your guy. And they do that, and I got 2-a-day soccer practices going on. There's a couple other guys. There was actually 3 other guys on the team that were also on scholarship. In my mind, if you're on scholarship, that means you're poor like me, because I also clued in on something else up on top of that hill. And that was that with the guys with the dough were getting the chicks, right? And another thing, I could be in a city for about 5 minutes and figure out what the deal is. You know what I mean? Back in Maryland, in high school, it was the good lacrosse players, the athletes, you know, that you're getting the girls. And, you know, and if you go to Chicago, this is the deal, you know. And here, up at the top of that hill, I was going to need a car. And I just know this, right? I have some kind of inward knowing. I'm going to need a really nice car, and I'm going to need some dough. And something inside of me always just knew that none of you beautiful women were going to want anything to do with a guy like me unless I could take you out first class. And no woman had ever told me, you know, you're ugly, you're stupid, we hate you, nothing. I just had this inward knowledge that I was like born with, that it was going to have to be good. And that kind of set me on a trajectory, much like Bill, where I was going to have to get some stuff. And these guys on the team that I perceived were like me, because they were on scholarship, what they really were was tremendously good athletes. They were great soccer players from Tijuana. But water seeks its own level. You know, we're all on scholarship. We become good friends. I meet lots of their cousins right across the border. I also figure out how to get this green stuff that the rich kids like smoking up to the university and back east. You know, I'm not leaving out people. I'm shrink wrapping it and sending it back. And I'm drinking. And my day is getting really busy now. Hopefully you guys could stick with me. I got 2-a-day practices. I got morning practice. Then I got these Jesuit classes that the nice lady helped me sign up for, and then I got to come home and I got the afternoon practice, and then I got to do some drinking and some shrink wrapping, because then I have the worst part of my day, which is from 7 to 10 o'clock at night. I have office hours where I have to counsel you pathetic people with your alcohol problem. You know, and by the way, if anybody needs to chill it out a little bit, come see me after office hours, and we'll get you squared away. But here's an AA schedule. You definitely need to go there. You know, so I'm a big advocate for you all. I'm not much of an attender, but I'm giving out your stuff. And then I got to drink a lot to fall asleep, because my life's very busy. Very busy. Got a lot going on. And if your life was like my life, you'd have to drink a lot to fall asleep. And our book says that often the alcoholic lives a double life, and I will tell you that if I just had 2 going on, that would have been wonderful. But at that point in my life, if any 2 people in my life would have been together at the same dining table, there'd have been big trouble. If my little sister had talked to my parents, there'd have been trouble. I had different stories going. If my teachers would have talked to my coach, there'd have been trouble. I had different stories going. If the registrar would have talked to my coach about which classes I was actually signed to, trouble. If any of those people at the school would have talked to my parents about where I was actually going, trouble. If my girlfriend had talked to my other girlfriend, big trouble. And I mean, just no 2 people in my life could be in the same place at the same time. And that takes a whole lot of energy to keep everybody separate. And I didn't know what was going on, but I knew it was exhausting. And I need to drink, you know, that's what I tell you. By my senior year, I'll tell you what my life looks like. I'd switched from the green stuff to the white stuff. It was just a lot more money. I had purchased my first house cash, 423 Nautilus Street. It's the 4th house on the right at Windansea Beach, but I don't surf anymore. When you drink like I drink, that's all you do. And when you surf and that wind's coming offshore in the morning and everything's still, I can't get out there anymore. And everything must go when I drink. Every dream, every hobby, every aspiration, every genuine joy. Because when I drink, I just drink. And I'm at 423 Nautilus. I'm driving a silver BMW. It's got a number on the back for you BMW people to let you know this isn't one of the models that they make and sell in the United States. I had to have it shipped here from Europe because I'm that important. And I'm dating the prettiest girl in the school, or at least that's what you all thought, so I dated her. I still don't know if I liked her. And we're eating cereal one morning. And I'm not sure if we were still up or what the situation was, but it was early. 5, 6 o'clock, I don't know. All I know is that boom, 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 boom. Every single door and window in that place came in. And the next thing you know, I was in those plastic zip ties, and I was getting hauled off. And for the first time, I was down here at the Metropolitan Correction Center, MCC, your federal prison. And I'm not a prison guy. I have to tell you that. Because I used to tell this story, and I think I would come across like some kind of bad guy. And I'm not. There's people I don't like, don't get me wrong, like prosecutors and police and judges. They don't see things the right way. And they take everything very serious. I mean, up to this point, I have like 30-some arrests on my record, but if you saw my NCIC, it should just say drunk and stupid, right? And then there's a list of all of these things: drunk in public, failure to obey a lawful command of an officer, things like we're out in front of the bar figuring out who's going to pay the tab, and you know what they call that, second-degree assault. I mean, they got these like serious names for the stuff we do. And we know what we're doing. And I always meant well. I don't know if anybody else, they just didn't understand that I meant well. And it wouldn't turn out that way, and it's hard to explain to them. The United States Attorney stood up and said, if Mr. Bruckner's given any bond whatsoever, he'll flee and live a happy and successful life in Mexico with his business partners. That was the first set of words that ever hit me. I call it a direct hit. It's kind of the opposite of all those near misses, those things that go right by an alcoholic of my variety. Those words, a happy and successful life. What is this guy talking about? I haven't been happy and successful in Hunt Valley, Maryland. Haven't been happy and successful in Baltimore. Haven't been happy and successful when my parents moved to the beach. Haven't been happy and successful in Pacific Beach. Hadn't been happy and successful in Mission Beach. Wasn't happy and successful when I moved to... What? But the judge bought it, because that's how judges are, and I wasn't given any bond. And I go in there, and I was the only, you guys, this is hard to believe, but I was the only guilty person in MCC. Everybody else in there was innocent. And I know this because it's what they talk about all day long, and they told stories. I now know when I talk about this power, I'm going to say God because it's got 3 letters and it's real short. And I hope that word, whatever just popped in your head when I said that, that's what I'm talking about. I hope it doesn't separate us, and I hope that it brings us together. Sometimes language and words could separate instead of bring together. And I used to, they made the mistake of calling on me when I had like 6 months or a year sober in one of those 11-step meetings, and I took it as an opportunity to explain my higher power to you. And I start talking, and I'm going, I don't really believe in God, blah, 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 but I will tell you this, that for a wave to break, it's energy. It travels thousands of miles across the ocean, and a wave breaks when it hits half the depth of the size of the wave, and an 8-foot wave will break when it hits 4 feet of water. It has to be either a reef or a sand bottom in just the right position for the swell angle, and the wind has to be just offshore. And if all of that happens, it comes together on the same day at the same time, you get a good day's surf, and I couldn't make all that happen. I'll concede that. And guy grabbed me after the meeting, and he's like, that's great that's what you think, Rich. You just took up 20 minutes of our meeting. We've got a word. It's called God. It's got 3 letters. It's real short, and you won't waste our meeting. And when you say that, we'll know what you're talking about, the thing that makes the waves. So ever since then, I've just gone with God, the thing that makes the waves. And whatever pops in your head, that's what I'm talking about. So I know that this thing that makes the waves, what it did for me, the beginning of my awakening was right there in MCC. And what God did for me, He surrounded me with enough of me that I was able to see me for the first time. And I would listen to these guys tell stories. Like, the reason that I'm in here is because of my mechanic. And if that mechanic had fixed my taillight right, that cop would have never pulled me over. And if he hadn't pulled me over, he'd have never smelled the liquor on my breath and pulled me out of the car, arrested me for DUI, and searched the trunk, incident to arrest. That's where he found the dope. So you can see that if the mechanic had fixed my taillight, I wouldn't even be in here. And when I get out of here, if I ever find that mechanic, and if you hook that guy up to a lie detector, he would pass it. He absolutely believes that he's in there because of his mechanic. Links up nothing, to his own behavior. And that's a big thing in Alcoholics Anonymous. I realized in that facility that I was where I was because of who I was. And I was who I was because of how I live. And I'll repeat that because y'all are big on it. I was where I was because of who I was. I was who I was because of how I live. In other words, I am nothing more than the sum total of my actions. My tombstone's not going to say, here lies Rich Bruckner, he meant well. I always meant well. You know, I can tell you what, I never left my house on a Friday night, you know, when you're getting in that shower and you got that cold beer in the shower with the frost coming down. The pre-game beer, you know, we're getting ready to go out, you know, and maybe I'm going up to L.A. for the night. I'm going to put on a silk shirt, spray on a little of the girl sauce. And, you know, just there's so much optimism in that moment in the shower. I mean, the whole night's about to happen, you know. And you said, hey, Rich, what are you up to tonight? And I go, you know what? Tonight's the night that I'm going to shame my mother where her eyes drop to the ground for about the next decade of my life because she's just that humiliated at what her son turned out to be. You got any plans tonight, Jordan? I never left the house going, you know what I'm going to do tonight? Tonight's the night that I'm going to shame my little sister to where she doesn't speak a single word to me for 6.5 years. What are you up to tonight? But both of those things are actually what happened. I didn't want any of it to happen, but it is what happened. And you guys are big on that in AA. Nobody in AA has ever said, hey, Rich, what do you think about our book? Do you think it's well written? Are the steps properly numbered? I mean, all you guys care about is what I do, right? We all carry the AA message. When absolutely necessary, we use our mouth. I mean, this is the least powerful form. You know, Jordan's sitting here listening tonight, but mostly he follows me around waiting to go, ha-ha, right? Those moments when they get us, not being a good at, gotcha. You say it'd always be 20 minutes at least early. You were 15 minutes early for the meeting. You know, you're late. And they're watching. All this comes to me in there. I'm in there for 9 months and 1 week. It's coming up on trial. It turns out that the DEA had some problems of honesty of their own on the affidavit to get the search warrant. It was determined to be an illegal search. They had to suppress the drugs. I will tell you that my mother, in her glory, has a copy of a cute little newspaper that says Jesuit student, 27 kilos of cocaine was a nice little article they wrote. I think that might have upset the Jesuits, but we'll get to that. I come out of that place when all that's suppressed and the case is dismissed. I cannot stay where I am for a whole lot of reasons. And I start bouncing around the country. I go to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. I go from Steamboat to Boulder, Boulder to a town called Ketchum, Idaho, Sun Valley. And I stay where I am for as long as I can until I get warrants. I'm the type of drinker, when I drink, I get in trouble. Nobody's ever told me the next day after drinking, that was so nice what you were doing last night. You went to the Vons and you were helping little ladies cross the street and emptying groceries. That's not what happens. When I drink, I get in trouble. When I get in trouble, there's warrants, and when there's warrants, I run away to another state. Because tough guys face the music and walk through them. I'm a coward. And so I run. And usually my solution to the problem is way worse than the problem. Meanwhile, by the way, I'll be honest, if I run into one of you ladies that looks like most of you here tonight at one of those bars in Sun Valley, I buy you a drink with money that's probably not mine or certainly illegally earned. And you say, so what's your story, Rich? And I say, I'm traveling, babe, traveling. Like I'm a romantic sojourner across our great country, right? And I'm like one step ahead, you know. I end up where all big shot, tough guy, wannabe drug dealers end up when the federal government takes everything you have, cars, house, bank accounts. I end up back on my mom's couch in Ocean City, Maryland. And I'm seeing some giggling and smiling and head nodding, which means we got some mom's couch people. And I couldn't even believe my mom took me back. You know, I mean, it's such a great place to start sobriety. So many of us do on mom's couch. And there's only one rule at mom's house, right? You can stay here as long as you want, as long as... Oh, yeah, we got mom's couch people, as long as you don't drink. That's it. And I was never, ever, ever going to drink again, and I meant it. And if you'd have hooked me up to that lie detector, I'd have passed it. I mean, I couldn't even believe she was giving me another chance. And I made it 2.5 weeks. And she had to put me out, and she got a restraining order. My aunt and uncle already had one to keep me away from their 3 daughters that are my goddaughters, because I was such a poor example. My mom, I'm coming in and out of your meetings. I'm bouncing in and out. I decide I'll give it a whirl. I've been sending you all to AA for years. I don't care for most of the meetings in my area, especially any of the ones that have like that yellow and blue book up front that says alcoholics. And like I know what you're going to talk about. There's step meetings. I try to get at it. If I figure out that that's what it is ahead of time, I go to a different one. We got these ones in Maryland I don't know too much about. In Maryland, they're called open discussion meetings. And there's a spiritual principle called water seeks its own level. That means sick attracts sick, you know. And so that's what I like. You know, I'm drawn to that. And in my area, it's like, here's how these meetings go down. It's like, does anybody have a topic for tonight's meeting? And Franny raises her hand and goes, yes, tonight I'd like to talk about my cat. My cat, Mitzi. I've had Mitzi for 12 years, and Mitzi died, and Mitzi and I had some of the best times of my life. She would play with this little ball of yarn, and she'd grab it and pull the yarn across the thing, and then she calls on Franny, who no doubt is knitting in the meeting, and then it turns out that she too was a pet owner. She had a Yorkshire Terrier, and she goes on for 15, 20 minutes about her trials and tribulations with pet ownership and the sadness she experienced with the Yorkshire Terrier, and you know what happens as an hour goes by? And I leave a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, dying of the fatal disease of alcoholism, knowing no more about recovery from this fatal condition than the second I walked into your meeting. Maybe I'm a better pet owner. You know? My personal favorite was when I could go into a meeting and I'd find a guy, somebody, does anybody have a topic? And, you know, Bob would do, he always had the same topic. She left me again. And I loved that. You know, and Bob would, you know, tell this newest tale of woe of the woman that left him. And he'd call on Frank, who knew all about relationships. He was on his fourth wife, but he didn't lighten us. And, you know, and then Frank would call on Stacy. Stacy was good. Stacy has been married and divorced, married and divorced, married and divorced, married and divorced. 4 times now. 4 times, same guy. Right? But she's got a lot to offer us. She's got a lot to offer. She knows all about relationships. You know what happens? We go through an hour-long meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I leave that meeting after 60 minutes knowing no more about recovery from the fatal disease of alcoholism than the second I walked in the meeting. Maybe I'm a better dater. There's this woman who I hate more than anybody, and her name is Janine. And Janine, she always has that blue and yellow big book under her arm, and this is just a little one for the airplane. It's what I got in my hand. She's 18 years sober when I met her. She's got the book in her hand at every single meeting. I mean, 18 years sober, haven't you read it yet? And the thing that really bothers me, she doesn't call her sponsees. She doesn't call them pigeons like they used to. She calls them duckies. I mean, it's nauseating, isn't it? She comes into the meeting, and she's got her book, and there's like 6 or 7 of them that come in back. And Janine sits down, and they file in with their little books and their smiles, and they got this stupid look like a lot of you have, like they're sober and happy about it. And I don't know what that is, because I'm in the back where you sit when you're sober and not happy about it. And I got the collar up and the arms crossed, which is, you got to do that when you just get out of jail. It's part of holding it together. You got to stay tough. And meanwhile, the last one, just so you know how tough I am, my last deal in jail was I did a residential burglary on my mom at 3 a.m. in the morning. You know, when she had the restraining order. I go in, I break in, she's got the door dead bolted. She's a retired school teacher on this little pension, and I'm on my stomach at 3 a.m. doing a commando crawl against my mom, you know, across the bedroom floor, and I'm reaching under my mom's bed, and she wakes up, and her eyes lock onto mine, and she says, "Rich, take it. Would you just take it?" And I'll tell you what, you can lock me up, you can beat me up, I got scars all over me, but don't give up on me, Mom. And she didn't give up. What I didn't know, moms don't give up. She just had to be done. Because the type of alcoholic I am, the more you love me, the more I will take from you. I will suck you dry. The more you love me, I will turn every hair on your head gray and not care. I'll take money you don't have and not care. And the people that don't love me like that are long since done with me. So the ones that stick around for the most damage are the ones that love me the most. And you know what I say when I get here? I was only hurting myself. You know, so that's what I mean, I'm not burglarizing you. You might hurt me. I'm such a tough guy, I burglarize my mom, you know, because that's what gangsters do. And so anyways, that's my last trip there. And then I'm in these meetings, and I'm in the back, and I'm being tough. And we get, in Maryland, we do this thing where, does anybody have 30 days sober? And like the first ducky would run up and go, you know, you get like 10 seconds to say how you got 30 days. And she's like, my name's Stephanie. Janine's my sponsor. I have 30 days today. I'm writing my 4th step, and Saturday I'm going to her house to do my 5th step. I'm getting free. And I'm in the back, and all I'm thinking about is like, I'm going to knock that smile right down her throat. I'm going to hit her so hard that the teeth are going to go right down her throat. I mean, that's what I'm thinking in the meeting, right? Does anybody have 60 days? And the next ducky comes up and, hi, I'm Tanya. I have 60 days. I just did step 6 and 7. I have my 8-step list. I'm going to start making amends. And she goes and sits down, and I'm in the back like, oh, I'm going to knock her teeth out. And then we get to my favorite part, Does anybody have 24 hours or a desire to start over? And I do the longest walk in AA one more time to pick up one more of those 24-hour chips.
To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
And that's what you're looking at, And I made it one time to 36 days without a drink. I wouldn't dare use the word sober. I got 36 days without a drink. And it occurs to me, I know just enough about AA to be dangerous to myself and anybody that would dare listen to me. I read your steps, and I determine that they're for nice people like you, not me. And I decide all of this by myself, by the way, in case I need to tell you that. I mean, this inventory thing, I just got out of the federal penitentiary. I got warrants in 3 states. The IRS has been looking for me for years. You don't write, the first rule of my business is you don't write anything down. It's called a paper trail. I don't want to go back there. And you all are real big on it. You're even excited about it. You say the 4th step, it holds the key to the future, right? The 4th step in my mind was for people like Polly, that we're just nice, good people. Look, she's just nice. Our 4th step reads one night I was out, I spilled a glass of red wine on my favorite white blouse. It was very embarrassing. I came to AA. I've never had another drink. Yeah. That's what I envisioned, right, up here. That's what I'm thinking. Couldn't have been wrong, more wrong. Couldn't have been more wrong. But it almost killed me, because what I did come to is I got to that place where I couldn't go one more day without a drink, and I didn't think I could do your steps. I'd had my liver biopsied. I had fatty cells. They were showing. He said it was pre-cirrhotic. It would recover if I didn't take any Tylenol for a year, ate this special diet, and, of course, stayed away from booze. But doctors tell me stuff like that all the time. What do they know? They're just doctors. And but I did hear this thing about the Tylenol. At 36 days, I took as many Tylenol as I could take and everything in the medicine cabinet, and I was ready to check out. What happened next, I don't have a great explanation for, other than this little word God you all throw around so liberally. I took that stuff in, my body apparently collapsed. I fell into the refrigerator. I live in a crappy apartment because that's where drunks live, and that refrigerator hit the wall of the apartment next to it. The lady next door.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
I've learned how to perfect attendance record at work. She hadn't missed a day of work in 9.5 years, and she was homesick that day. And she heard that thud into the wall, and it scared the daylights out of her. She ran out front, looked through the door, and she saw feet on the ground. She called 911. I ended up back in Atlantic General Hospital for the 4th time in a year. And when I woke up, I was in one of those sexy paper hospital gowns that your butt hangs out, and they're very good for your self-esteem. There were wires and tubes, and things were beeping. And I had that thought that statistically a couple people in this room have had, where I can't even die right. I am such a loser, I can't even kill myself right. And then I cleared my eyes, and as I was getting some focus back, y'all know who's at the end of that bed? Janine with the duckies. Now, I'm not sure if there's a place called Alcoholic Hell or not, but I'm pretty sure I was in it, if there is a place like that. And Janine did not talk to me that day. She tried to talk to me plenty of times, but she did talk to the duckies. And she said, girls, I want you to take a good look. This is what happens to an alcoholic that refuses to take our steps. Let's go, girls. And that was it. That was it. Something inside of me snapped. I realized I'm like the poster child for Poor Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm the guy you all bring your sponsees to see what not to do. And I got to tell you, when I was in got into this book and started reading Bill's story, I was a little bit hot. I mean, Bill got that beautiful white light and the breeze, and I got Janine and the duckies. Are you kidding me? But it turns out that it was every bit as significant, because the next thought I've never had one like it before, and I never had one since. And you know what that thought was? If I live, if I get out of here, I'm going to find one of those old guys with that book in their hand and that smile on their face, and I'm going to do everything they tell me to do. That was it. It was just that simple. And my first sponsor was a man named Jim. He had a sponsor by the name of Clarence Snyder, who had a sponsor by the name of Dr. Bob Smith. I don't tell you that to impress you. I tell you that from me, so I know what I got and who I got it from. I hope you know the same. He started me through this and explained to me what's going on, that I'm a guy that's got less power than is required to manage my most sincere decision to never take another drink. He said, powerless, less power. Would you agree that's what powerless means? Yes, sir, I would. He said, is there any decision you could think of, Rich, that you've made time and time and time again in your life? Yes, sir, that I'm never going to take another drink. How you doing managing it, hotshot? Not so good, Jim, not so good. Okay, so all you're telling me is that you have less power than is required to manage your own decision to take another drink. And that's what you're looking at. I'm a guy with less power. Unfortunately, that's what the next 11 steps are about. Alcoholics Anonymous is all about getting power. You know, getting hooked up with that power that comes in and through us, that we can help another drunk where maybe nobody else on the face of the earth can. You know, you're not going to see me coming in and out of your meetings and frumping in and there, spilling out that stuff. I'm powerless over people, places, and things. You know, my book tells me that we've been uniquely given power. It says we've been given the power. It's not mine. I got to be real clear on that, right? But we have been given the power to help where no one else can. I mean, that is exciting. If you're not excited about that, I mean, that is cool stuff. And we start through this thing. He told me I'd already done a second step. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, you've come to believe in Alcoholics Anonymous. Otherwise, what are you doing here? Think about that one. Why are you here? Unless California's different, they might sentence you to AA meetings, but they don't sentence you to weekend conferences. If you're here, it's because you want to be. And if you want to be here, chances are it's because you believe that when we're all together, that there's some power in and amongst us that comes through us from one another that brings us together. I think that's what we're really celebrating this weekend, isn't it? And that's why we're all here. We want to tap into that and grow into that. He said, would you like to make a decision? Steps 1, 2, and 3. I think we spent 5 minutes. Would you like to make a decision? What's that, Jim? To go through with the rest of the program. Yeah, I think it's the only thing I've never done in AA. Might as well give it a whirl. And it wasn't because I thought it was a good idea. It was because it was the only thing I hadn't done. Trust me, I've been to your dances. I'll set up your pamphlets. I'll mop your floors. I'll set up and break down every chair in here. But I'm not touching that book, right? And so we started off, you know, we did this inventory, and that was enlightening, wasn't it? I mean, it turns out that I'm the only person that's the common denominator in every single relationship. Like, the odds are astronomical that I believe in my case there was like 62 people that either they were all wrong or maybe I was. You know? And I'm not very smart and could figure that out. And I started to get acquainted with my greater deficiencies. We're getting down to the rest of them later. I got a long way to go with you all. You know, but it says that that's what we get after that inventory process, and several of them. You know, each time I'm maybe whittling it down a little bit more. And he was getting up in age, and he passed me to my current sponsor, Roger, and he said, Roger will help you with the rest, kid. And you know, Roger had me up on that 9th step, and he said, you know what, up until this point, kid, Alcoholics Anonymous is largely theoretical. All AA is up until the 9th step. He said, you want to know what you are up until the 9th step? All you are is a self-informed jerk. Nobody out there in the whole world cares that you've come to peace with some God of your understanding in steps 1, 2, 3. They don't care. Nobody cares that you've written all that inventory, shared it with God and your sponsor. Good for you. They don't care. Nobody out there cares that you could talk about your shortcomings and defects. They don't care. And they don't care that you got a list of what you're going to make right. You've been going to make stuff right your whole life. But the 9th step, he said, how free do you want to be, kid? How free do you want to be? Maybe, just maybe, you get to die with both sides of the slate clean. And that sounded all right to a guy like me. He said, you're going to start dating that mother of yours. Anywhere she will go with you, you take her once a week. Where she'll go lunch, dinner, I don't care. And at the time I got my first job in AA, I'm sweeping the floor in a picture frame shop. My job was to keep the sawdust off the floor. My little hands were shaking. I was a mess for 3 months. And I made $6.25 an hour. And I will tell you what, a little bit became a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know if anybody noticed that. At the end of the week, I somehow mysteriously, I always had $1 for your basket, and I always had money to take my mom to dinner. A little becomes a lot in AA. When I focus on the spiritual, the material always takes care of itself. I'd had it backwards my whole life. You know, and I'm taking my mom to dinner, and I'm taking my mom to dinner, and I'm taking, I don't know how many, I mean, it went on and on and on, but I do know where we were. We were at Carrabba's. And she had spaghetti and meatballs. And the reason I remember that is because while she was eating them, the most magnificent thing that had happened to me in years happened. She lifted her head up from that plate of pasta and looked me square in the eyes and was talking to me, Mother the Son, the way that it's supposed to be. And she started having me over to her house to take out the trash and to change light bulbs and to do the things that sons do. But I wasn't even allowed to be near her house, and now I was. And something inside of me was starting to change, and I was starting to like the meetings I didn't used to like. Anybody had that happen? Right? I'm somehow attracted, you know, and there's people that were kind of, I'm suddenly kind of drawn to them. You know, I was becoming, I think our book calls it inwardly reorganized, right? All I know is something's starting to change. And the next, you know, I'm just trucking along through this and going, he said, who's next on that list? And it was my little sister. And for some reason, I had this set of, you know how we are when we get here. We've got nothing we're supposed to have. Our priorities are all out of whack. I had a set of Baltimore Ravens season tickets. I had the same luggage as Mr. Delegate, you know, that plastic bag that we all come with. And I got, that's everything I own, and Ravens season tickets. And I don't know why I have those. I think it was like the last drug deal before sobriety, trade or something. And you all are laughing, but there's people in this room that are living in a homeless shelter. Your sponsor's picking you up. You don't have a car, a bank account, or anything else, but you got an iPhone 6. And your sponsor's going, why do you have an iPhone 6? I mean, how do you have that? You know, because that's how we are. We've got nothing we need and all kinds of things we don't when we get here. And he said, send those tickets to your sister. She lives in Baltimore. You don't. Send them to her. She'll go to the game and enjoy it. And I said, these are expensive. That's stupid. He said, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. Send them to your sister. And I did, and nothing happened. He said, send the next set. And I did. And the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and on the other end of that phone was a little girl's voice that said, Richie, did you see that? They just threw the ball. They tossed it. They caught the Ravens. They tied it up. The Ravens are tied. And I could have cared less. I didn't know who the Ravens were playing. There was nothing I could have cared less about, man. But I was talking to my little sister for the first time in 6.5 years. And I kept sending those tickets. And we developed this little relationship around football. And on the weekends, I would drive there to help her. It was 3 hours each way. And I'd help her fix up her first little house that she bought and paint the walls and lay down some of that snapped-together hardwood floor. I'm no carpenter. Don't get any ideas. But, you know, I'm helping my little sister to put this house together and driving back on Sundays. And I never had enough money to go. I never had enough free time. It was at the end of the work week. I was always tired. I never wanted to drive 6 hours. You know, and my sponsor says if it's convenient, you're doing it wrong. You know, and I will tell you this about the 9th step. If I was waiting until I had enough money and it became convenient, I'd still be waiting. You know, I started paying back the IRS. I owed the IRS $27,000, and that was a lot for me at the time. And he drove me to Baltimore to, like, turn myself in. I'm like, well, they're going to send me to jail. They're not going to send you to jail. The IRS does not want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. I'll never forget him saying that. I go, what does that mean? And he goes, they'd rather have something than nothing. If they lock you up, they're not getting any money. So we set this payment plan. I was sending $20 a week to the IRS. And I have no idea how you're going to pay $27,000 back $20 a week, right? I mean, it's stupid. I had a plan, much like yours, right? I was going to pay him the full $27,000, every penny, as soon as I had it all. You know? The problem was I was never going to have it all. And you know when I started feeling better and those guts, you know, that ball that we all have, that tightness, it started to loosen up, not when it was done getting paid, but when I sent the first $20 check. That's when the letters from the IRS stopped coming. That's when the phone calls, those messages. I started to be able to answer the phone a little bit. You know, alcoholics, talk to an alcoholic about that. We don't have anything else, but we got caller ID. Right? I'll tell you, if you got to look at your phone before you answer it, you're living in bondage of self, and I don't have enough time to go into it. Ask your sponsor what the hell that weird bald guy meant. I will tell you, one of my greatest freedoms is that I can answer the phone, and a lot of people in this room call me and are my dear friends. It doesn't even matter whether I know you or not. I answer the phone the same way. Hello, Rich Bruckner. And it doesn't matter who's on the other end of the phone, because I will tell you right now, I'm not wanted in any state, and I don't know anybody on the face of the planet a single penny. And that is an incredible feeling. You know, that is to just be able to answer the phone. And it took the better part of 4 years, and we put that last check in the mailbox to the IRS, and my little sponsor's got a pacemaker, and he's 80-some years old, and he jumped up over that mailbox and gave me a high five like Michael Jordan when we put the last check into the IRS, and he said, say it to the mailbox. And we're like in public, you know, and he's making me talk, and I said it to the mailbox, you know. My amends to the IRS is complete, and I put in like a year went by, and they sent me this big envelope and had stuff in it, and there was a big check in there, and I knew that I'd screwed something up, and I drove to 20 minutes to my sponsor's house because I knew I was in trouble. And I said, look at this, tell me what's going on, I know I'm in trouble. And he looked at it, and he said, that's a tax refund check, you idiot. Normal people get those every year. And I have. I get one every year. They send that. I pay them. They send some back. It's better. I thought I had to deal with them before, which was I don't ask them for anything. They don't get anything from me. They didn't like that deal. But this one is fine. I send them. I don't even have to agree with it. I just got to pay them, and then they send something back. And last I had this friend, Ethan, who was my oldest friend in the world on that list. Well, let me finish up with my little sister, because that's important to me. That little sister, after this relationship built, years go by, and I get a phone call from this guy, Justin, who I knew him. He said, Rich, this is Justin. I know your father's no longer a part of your life, but you've become the #1 man in your little sister's life. I'm calling to ask you for permission. Could I please have her hand in marriage? And I'm telling you, man, that there is nobody less qualified than this pathetic drunk to give away the hand of a beautiful little girl like that. And she called the next day and asked if I'd walk her down the aisle. And I got to do that, a sober man of integrity, with my head up and my shoulders back. And I didn't know what was going to happen years later, but I do now. She's got a little boy, Sadler, my nephew, who's 2.5 years old, and she's got his younger brother, Brixton, who's 1 year old. And I was just at their house last night to them take me to the airport, and now that I have Isabella, 9 months old, my daughter's going to get to grow up with cousins. Because we get to all be in the same house at the same time all the time, and that mother gets to be a grandmom. And you ought to see the smile on her face, and trust me, this weekend, anybody that gets near me, I'm going to start showing you pictures of my mom with these 3 kids piled on her at Christmas, and she's like the happiest woman in the world. And that's what AA has given her, is a family that's just a family. And it says that right in the foreword. You know the part of the book that we skipped? It says that right in there. It actually says that the 2 main reasons that Alcoholics Anonymous is growing by leaps and bounds is the large number of recoveries and families reunited. And you've never lied to me. And then came Ethan, and they said, Ethan asked me to be the best man at his wedding when I was living out here in La Jolla, taking over the world, 1 drug deal at a time. And his father had me fit it for a tuxedo. He actually paid for it, sent me a plane ticket, and I was too drunk to get on the plane. And when I do something like that, I don't call, because he goes on that secret list that we keep deep in our guts, you know. And then whenever the phone rings and I see it on that caller ID, that bondage of self kicks in, and I can't answer it because I know why he's calling. He's calling to tell me what a no-good bum I am. I'd heard his wife was lovely as the years went by. I heard they had a child, another child, you know, and I know he's telling the kids what a lousy bum I am. And, you know, I just can't take the phone call. And, you know, Roger said, Ethan's next on the list. And I called and I said, I need 5 minutes of your time, buddy. I don't know if your dad can be there. I know I really screwed up all those years ago at your wedding. I was a lousy friend, and I'm in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't ever want to have to take another drink, man. I know you hate me. I need 5 minutes to try to straighten out what I've done here. If I could just sit with you and your dad and just try to square this away, it would be wonderful. And he said, all right, you could be here Saturday morning at 7 a.m. if you can make it. And that was like 9 years later. So I think he remembered he might have had one of those resentment things. And I showed up, and I saw his dad's car in the driveway. And his wife, when Ethan opened the door, and his wife was by the center island, and there was a little girl standing by her, and his mother and father were in the back, and what I didn't see was this little boy. He darted at me from some back room and just came running at me, man, and grabbed a hold of my leg like a tree trunk, and he looked up in my eyes. He said, "You're my Uncle Rich? Daddy said one day I'd meet you." And our book on page 78 says that 9 out of 10 times when the approach is made in this fashion, the unexpected happens. And what I can report back to you is that in that second, with that little guy holding onto my leg and looking up at me, the scales of Pride and Prejudice fell from my eyes. I had an inward knowing. You guys didn't sell me anything. You didn't convince me about your God, your higher power. You didn't convince me about anything. You said, take these 12 actions and see what happens, and report back to us. Just give it a whirl and see what happens. And in that instant, with that kid holding me, you know what I realized? I'm what separates me from you. My stupid ego, my stupid inability to face the music, to say those words, I was wrong. I'm what separates me from you. And the problem is if I'm separate from you, I'm separate from God. And I just had some inward knowing of that, and like the second of him holding me. And I show up at all their birthdays. On Christmas Eve, we do my family, and then I go there with, spend Christmas Eve with his kids and gifts. And at their birthdays, I show up, and it's 3 hours each way. When it snows, I just went down there, I take them sleigh riding. And you know what those kids say to me? Uncle Rich, you show up on all the good days, like it's an accident, you know. But AA lets us show up on all the good days. And I sat down with his father, and I made my amends to his father for that tuxedo and the plane ticket. And, you know, he said, yeah, you owe me $1,372. And I didn't see that coming. But I had it in my pocket, you know, from the swimming pool. You know, by now, I forgot to tell you, I got my big promotion. I went from doing the floors, I vacuumed swimming pools in Ocean City. I made $500 a week. I couldn't even believe it. It was like the greatest thing in the world. And I'm ready to pay the guy. And he said, well, wait a second. If you really have a home group and are really in this AA thing like you're talking about, you're not going to pay me that $1,372. You're going to take that money and you're going to spend it no more than $10 at a time at your home group. You're going to take donuts. You're going to take cookies. You're going to take some fancy coffee every now and then. You're going to save every receipt. And not one of them could be for more than $10. You're going to put gas in a newcomer's car. Don't give them the money. Put the gas in the car. When you have $1,372 of receipts, you could bring them back to me, and on that day, your amends to me will be complete. By the way, I'm sober in Alcoholics Anonymous 28 years, and I've been praying for the two of you since you've been that big. And Jordan can tell you that my home group, a big book study, they ate Stouffer's lasagnas for 2.5 years. They're $9.95, so I'd get a receipt that came in just under $10. They enjoyed those lasagnas. And the best part about it is anybody that's cooked a Stouffer's lasagna, you know what you got to do. 375 degrees, hour and 45 minutes. I was thinking of you 2 hours before I came to your meeting. I was with you 2 hours before I even got to the meeting. And it caused a shift inward to outward of what can I bring to the occasion. And he teaching me to become a giver rather than a taker. And I took those back, and that amends. That was a great day. And last, he said, you know what? I owed the state of California, I owed y'all 5 years of my life because I had a DUI with some of those outside issues in my pocket. And I've got to participate in a program that y'all still have, I believe, called the PC 1000 First Time Felony Offenders Program. And I screwed it all up. And when the judge sentenced me, he said, if you complete this program, it's going to go away. That's how the program works. It'll be as if you never had a conviction. If you fail to do this, I'm going to give you every day of the 5 years that the cocaine carries. Are we clear? And I said the same thing to him that I say to every judge. You bet, Your Honor. I'm going to be your model guy. Yeah. And I believed it because I didn't really understand that alcohol owned me lock, stock, and barrel, that it wasn't up to me whether I was going to complete that probation. And my sponsor thought it's good to have a sponsor. They see things very, very different than I do anyways. And he said it's a good time to go serve that 5 years now. I had about 2 years sober, and I had a little AA girlfriend, not my wife. Somebody I was dating at the time. You all threw in the complimentary AA girlfriend that you do. And I had the job with the pool. My mom and I were good. I'm trying to explain to him why we don't do these acts of heroics. I'm throwing some big book at my sponsor about why I shouldn't do this. And he says, let me help you see this clearly. This is a good time to go do that 5 years. All your mother's ever wanted you to do is to do the right thing. Why don't you talk to her and see what she would have you do? That girlfriend you have, she's 18 years sober. She's got a sponsor of her own. She's got a God of her own. She's doing just fine. In fact, she was probably much better off before you came into AA. That house you have, it's not a house. It's a trailer, and you don't own it. You rent it. You know, it's not even yours. And that career you think you have, you vacuum swimming pools. Just about anybody will do that. The pools will be okay. This is a good time to go do that 5 years. And I didn't think so, but I got on that airplane with a whole bunch of the guys from the home group, and I had sweat circles under my arms, and I was sick in my stomach, and I showed up at the judge, downtown San Diego, as a matter of fact, and I stood in that courtroom, scared to death. I was in and out of the bathroom 3 times that morning, addressing the toilet with various ends of my body. So this was not a graceful thing, is what I want you to know. Any of this business about faith and fear can't be in the same place at the same time. That might be very true. I don't know about that. I was scared to death, and I had faith that somehow we were going to get through this together, me, you, and God. What I didn't know was that 47 of you took the time to write that judge a letter and tell him I was coming and what my life looked like in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that judge says, Mr. Bruckner, I ordered you to 10 meetings of AA and this and that. While you did not complete this the way that I told you to, all of these people tell me you've been to over 1,000 meetings, you're doing this, you're doing that. This case is dismissed. Please go back to Maryland and do whatever they have you doing in Alcoholics Anonymous. And he hit that down. I will tell you that if you pulled my NCIC today, I've been arrested 36 times. I've gone to jail 36 times. I'm not a prison guy. I'm a jail guy. I specialize in like 90-day sentences, 6-month sentences, a year. I was doing life on the installment program. That's what was going on, and I couldn't even believe I walked out of that courtroom, and I picked up that phone, I called Roger, and I said, Roger, tell him I'm coming home, tell him I'm coming home. I don't have to do the 5 years. We could still have the big book study in my living room. I was all excited, and he said, wait a second, hotshot. You can't buy a plane ticket home until tomorrow, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, what about that Jesuit school that kicked you out? Why don't you swing over there while you're there? And I'm thinking, like, good God, can we have like a moment of celebration? But sponsors are like that. I drove up here to USD, and the dean was still there, the same dean that kicked me out. And we were talking about her at dinner tonight, and I did my amends with her. And I said, listen, I know that was in the newspaper, and it just me. I now know what Jesuits stand for. You all stand for building men and women of integrity and education and doing the right things. A whole lot of things I didn't stand for. I have no idea how to make this right with this institution, but I'm willing to do whatever you tell me. She said, if that's right, come with me. She walked me to the building next door, had me fill out a big thing of paper. She said, this is an application to our law school. What you're going to do is you're going to go here and you're going to graduate from our law school. We don't like to kick students out. We like to graduate students. That's what makes us look good, believe it or not, having a high graduation rate. Never thought of that. Yeah. I stepped outside. I called my sponsor. I said, she's lost her mind. She wants me to go to law school. I barely got through college. I got 36 arrests. I'm a federal felon. Even if I get through law school, they'll never let me take the bar. If I do pass the bar, they're never going to let me pass the ethics committee. If I get through the ethics committee, they're going to... He said, shut up. Shut up. Did you just tell that lady you do whatever she said to make it right? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, then shut up and fill out the papers. 3 years later, I graduated second from the top of my class. Not because I'm smart. Not because I'm smart. I got 2 remaining brain cells. I did it the AA way. I was 15 minutes early, at least, for every class. I shook every teacher's hand every day, and I asked a question whether I had one or not. I stayed after class for 15 minutes and asked a question. It developed a relationship with every teacher where they knew me by name, just like we do with the newcomer coming in and out of the door. That principle has served me well in so many different areas of my life. When I came back, I did have to go in front of the ethics committee. That was not fun. There's 9 judges sitting there. I wish you could have been a fly on the wall. They said, we can't figure this out. We have these wonderful grades and recommendations, and then we've got these NCIC and these 36. Help us. And what came out of my mouth was, well, Your Honors, I had to disclose to you in the application process that I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was required I disclose that. I'm not sure how familiar any of you are with Alcoholics Anonymous. It turns out there's a substantial period of drinking required for membership. And they started just laughing like you guys are. And I said, you don't have to worry about me. If I drink, I will be self-eliminating from the profession of law. I came back east, and after I passed that bar, it was there and in a couple other states, and I got a phone call, and on the other end of the phone, thank God I could answer my phone, because I didn't recognize the number, and it was a guy that introduced himself. He said he was the state's attorney for the state of Maryland. He had the governor on the other line. Patched him in. He said they just received a large federal grant. He wanted to hire an assistant state's attorney to start a narcotics and gang prosecution unit, that he was given my phone number that I might know something about the importation of narcotics into our country. And I'm thinking what you're thinking. My knee is about buckled. But you know what those old guys promised me? They said, kid, one day your sordid past will become your greatest asset. And I'll tell you what, it was hard at first. The judge would say tricky things, because I've already told you how judges are. They're tricky little son of guns. And he would say things like, well, the defendant, please rise. I'd stand up, and everybody in the courtroom would laugh, and I'd turn red, and the judge would say, sit down, and I'd sit down. It takes a while to get used to being a prosecutor when you're a defendant. And what I know that God has done is he's positioned me uniquely at that table, that when I look at the defense table, I don't see a guy that was doing an armed robbery of a liquor store for a 12-pack of beer at 1:30 in the morning. I see a guy that when the terror and madness were on, would steal from his wife's slender purse. I see a guy that, much like me, on his stomach, was underneath that bed. And I can promise you all that I've served in that capacity now for 7 years. I've come up with some very creative sentencing arrangements. Because I've practiced law in the same way that you all have taught me to act in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's no difference in my life I don't have anything called my marital life, my AA life, my work life. It's one and the same. And it turns out that because of that, my peers have now, my name was just one of 3 names sent to our governor for our next available judgeship. The governor will select one of the 3 names. I don't know if it'll be me. If it would, I would be the youngest circuit court judge in our state ever. We'll see. I have no idea. And I could go on and on and on. If you can't tell, I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love everything you guys stand for and about and do, and walking with you and doing it with you. And I'm looking forward to doing that all weekend. I'll close by telling you, every day of my life, the coolest thing I get to say 2 killer things. Every morning, I get to walk into that courtroom and I say, good morning, Your Honor. Rich Bruckner for the state of Maryland. And that still feels good. But every night I get to say the far more important thing. I get to come somewhere like this and hang out with people like you and say that my name's Rich Bruckner. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks for my life.
Wow, that was great. Yeah.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. To obtain additional copies, receive a free catalog of AA and Al-Anon talks, or to find out about our Tape and CD of the Month Club, call Encore Audio Archives at 1-800-878-1308, or visit our website at www.12steptapes.com.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.